Good morning, everybody who is currently joining us and joining the webinar. We're going to give a minute or so to allow everybody to join before we get started. Now it is actually afternoon now, so I'll say good afternoon to everybody who is joining us and joining the call. We are going to give a minute or so to allow everybody time to join, and then we'll get started. Great, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Robin Vernon-Harkle and I lead on our This Is Me and mental health work at the Lord Mayor's Appeal. Really great to see so many of you on the call, and I know some of you are just joining. But whilst you are joining, I'm going to run over a couple of housekeeping points to help us make the most of our time together this morning. You'll notice that you are on mute and your videos aren't showing. That will be the case for the entirety of the webinar. But don't worry, if you have any questions or anything that you need help with, you can use the chat function to speak to us. And we will also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, which you can use the Q&A function for at the bottom of your screen to post questions to our speakers today. And we are recording the webinar, so we can share this with you afterwards if you have any technical difficulties or if you need to leave early, or share with any of your colleagues who couldn't join us today. Also, you can tweet at us or share about our webinar today and any of your reflections at using our hashtags This Is Me, End the Stigma, and at LMA Appeal. Great, so this is the fourth webinar in our This Is Me webinar series for 2020. And the purpose really for today is to share practical advice and best practice on how you can get senior level support or senior management support and buy-in for your This Is Me activities in your organisation, and also for your wider mental health agenda as well. And I'm therefore absolutely delighted to have Faye McGuinness from Mind and June Clark from Nestle with us today, who both have a wealth of knowledge and experience of engaging senior leaders in their mental health work, and especially in their This Is Me activities as well, who will be sharing their practical tips with you. So you should come away with lots of great ideas for you to implement in your workplace. Before I hand over to the speakers, I'm going to give a very quick introduction to This Is Me for anybody who is newer to the programme who's joining us today. And then, as I said, we'll finish with a Q&A where you'll have an opportunity to put any of your questions to Faye and June. So a short introduction to This Is Me. This Is Me supports organisations really to end the stigma around mental health in the workplace and create healthier and more inclusive cultures to improve employee well-being. We do that in a number of ways by providing a range of tools for organisations to use, depending on what stage they're at their mental health journey and depending on their mental health agenda. The first of these is supporting organisations to raise awareness of the importance of supporting mental health at work. and really creating a visible community of support, both internally and externally, for supporting mental health. And that is through our Green Ribbon campaign that we run during Mental Health Awareness Week and World Mental Health Day as well. And as I'm sure most of you know, that is coming up soon in October. So at the very end of this webinar, do hang on and I will give a quick 1-minute update on how you can get involved with This Is Me over World Mental Health Day. Secondly, by supporting organisations to really encourage their employees to share their lived experience of mental health. And this is really to open up the conversation, dispel those myths and some of those challenges that people face when talking about mental health, and really challenging those stereotypes about who it is that have mental health, which of course is all of us, and who it is that has mental health problems, which again is going to be all of us at some point in our life, whether directly or indirectly. And thirdly, we support organisations to build the skills and confidence of their employees to talk about mental health confidently. And that's through our e-learning tool, which we developed in partnership with Samaritans, which is called Wellbeing in the Workplace. So a range of different tools that can support you within your organisations to really push the dial forward to end the stigma around mental health. And before we jump into, how can we get that senior management support or that senior level buy-in to both help you bring This Is Me to your workplace, but for your wider agenda as well, I just wanted to very briefly share, why This Is Me. What impact can it have within your workplace? What change will it bring for you? And this is actually a really key tool that can help support get that senior level buy-in, demonstrating the impact that it can have within your business. And we know this from our research, and we work closely with our This Is Me organisations to understand their experience of the programme and the change that they see in their workplace as a result. And what we see is not just the direct impact that This Is Me has on raising awareness, encouraging people to speak more openly, reducing the stigma, as you can see from the statistics on the screen. What we also see is that it really has the power to act as a catalyst for wider change across the organisation as well. And we see this because we measure organisations against these 10 measures that you can see on the screen. And what we say is that if an organisation is achieving 7 or more of these measures, they're really making really sustainable, tangible change about how their organisation is thinking and acting around mental health. What we found from our 2019 survey, that for those organisations who hadn't done This Is Me, and specifically hadn't done storytelling, only 28% of those organisations were achieving 7 or more of these measures. When we then compared them to organisations that had done This Is Me and had done storytelling, this figure increased to 87% of organisations achieving 7 or more of those 10 measures. So This Is Me really has that ability to support your wider mental health agenda and really create the conditions within your workplace that helps to build on and help get that support as well. So, very quick introduction on that. And before I hand over to our speakers, what I would like to ask everybody on the call is we've got a very quick poll for you. And this is really to understand where you are at as an organisation or as an individual. Do you currently feel that you have the level of senior level buy-in for your mental health agenda that you need, that you would like? Really quick, simple yes and no to sort of understand where everybody is at on the call and to help inform the presentations we have coming to date. So I'll just give you 30 seconds all to answer the poll. Great, so we should be seeing those poll results up on our screens to get an idea of where we are at. Great. So we can see here that actually a lot of organisations are saying, yes, we do have that senior level buy-in, which is fantastic to see. But still, you know, almost a third of organisations saying not quite yet, or not quite at the level that we want at the moment. So for those organisations, or for those organisations that do have senior level buy-in, but perhaps you want to increase that support, can you pop into the chat function now? What are some of those challenges that you're facing, or that you think you might face if you're very much at the start of your journey? So when you're thinking about engaging your senior leaders, potentially getting their sign off for you to do a This Is Me storytelling campaign, or share the green ribbon, how could you get them involved in sharing their story? Just pop in any of the challenges that you're having. And what we'll do is just kind of touch base on some of these areas as the speakers are sharing their presentations. And then we'll also come back to some of these challenges at the end when we have our Q&A as well, to dive into those in a little bit more detail there. So we've got some great answers coming in here. This is fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Very interesting. Resource allocation can feel a bit like a tick box exercise. Providing return on investment, conflicting priorities, still stigma at a senior level. Really interesting. And that leads really fantastically into introducing our first speaker, Faye McGuinness, who is Head of Workplace Wellbeing at Mind. And Faye really has such a wealth of knowledge around how to engage senior leaders in conversations around mental health and to get their support for your mental health agenda. And not only that, but Mind have been a partner of This Is Me since we started in 2016. So Faye also knows the programme inside and out and will be able to share some really great specific ideas for your This Is Me activities as well. So thank you very much, Faye.
Great, well, it's brilliant to be here. Really important subject. And so, yes, my day job is basically convincing businesses and convincing senior leaders to prioritise workplace mental health. So I could talk about this for 8 hours, let alone the 8 minutes that I have. But I do just have 8 minutes for now, and hopefully we can pick up more in the question and answer session. But what I really want to focus on in these 8 minutes is firstly what I believe are the key ingredients to getting senior management buy-in when it comes to prioritising workplace mental health. And that's from my experience of doing this across many organisations, many sectors, and with senior leaders who are brought in and with senior leaders who really weren't brought in when we started. And then secondly, I want to look a little bit more at This Is Me and actually give an example of the experience I had at Mind in terms of working with our senior leaders to make sure that we could embed This Is Me. And you might think that that's really easy because we're a mental health charity, but we ourselves have challenges as well. So I wanted to share our personal experience of that. So just starting with the key ingredients and from what I've learned about how you can get senior management buy-in. So for me, there are 4 key ingredients that you need when you're building your case for senior management. So the first is the why. And this is your business case. And we think, or we assume, that actually everybody's up to speed with the business case, right? Because we've been talking about workplace mental health for quite a while now. And actually, as a result of COVID, we've seen many businesses accelerate their practice in this space. But it's still really important that we set out a clear business case. And for me, that business case needs to look at 5 areas. So the first and the most important is the human cost. Each year across the world, we know that around 800,000 people take their own lives. That's 1 in every 40 seconds. And many of those people are employees, they're people in work. So your business case really needs to pull out the human cost to not prioritising mental health. Secondly, your business case needs to look at the financial cost. So we know that the cost to UK employers of poor mental health at work is £45 billion every year. And £29 billion of that is made up of presenteeism. So there will be people in your organisations who are working, but they're not feeling at their best, they're not feeling at their most productive because they're not getting the right support or they're not working within the right culture that prioritises their health and well-being. So it's really important that you look at the financial cost, look at the reports and the figures that are out there already, and start to understand what that looks like for an organisation of your size and your workforce. So the human cost and the financial cost. But then it's really important that you also start to look at the return on investment. And I recognise that this is quite tricky and quite hard for organisations to do. And many organisations historically have focused on sickness absence as being the real measure of return of investment. You know, if we invest lots into this, less people take time off sick, there's our return on investment. But actually the reality is we know that sickness isn't the issue. People are remaining in work, but they're not being productive. So actually what you need to look at is you need to look at things like productivity. You need to look at stigma levels. You need to look at other areas of ROI that are not just linked to that sickness absence stat. And we know from a report that Deloitte published earlier this year that for every £5 spent on a workplace wellbeing intervention, there is a £5 return of investment. So that ROI business case is there, and you should be pulling those stats from those kinds of reports. So your human cost, your financial cost, and your ROI. And the number 4 is, what are your staff saying? Your business case should absolutely be pulling on what your staff are telling you are the issues that they are facing. And that doesn't mean that you pull something from your staff survey 1 year ago. You need to have current up-to-date information about how your staff are feeling. And that should absolutely create part of your business case. And then the final part of the business case is, can you talk to other businesses and learn from them about the positive impact they felt from implementing workplace wellbeing programs? Try and find similar people in your sector who you know are doing good work in this space and use them as a case study. We know that businesses like to compete. There is that element of competition, and that's no different in the workplace wellbeing space. So why not use those good case studies and use them in your business case? So the why, your business case. You've got the human cost, the financial cost, return of investment, what your staff are saying, and learning from other businesses. And then the next key ingredient is the what. So what is it that you want to do? You might not have all of the answers when you first speak to your senior leaders, but at least have an idea of the types of interventions you might want to implement. And look at the evidence to back up why these are the right ones. We do know that there is a lack of evidence around workplace interventions, and there's some work happening at the moment with the Wellcome Trust to really look at the evidence base, which I think is going to be absolutely brilliant. But if you are going to choose particular interventions, try and explain to senior managers why you have chosen them. The next key ingredient is the impact. What is the impact you expect to see, and how are you going to measure it? We know that for many years, lots of organisations have done what we would possibly call the low-hanging fruit. We're going to do some training over here, or some awareness over here, or sign up to this over here. But in reality, we don't think organisations have done enough to tackle the kind of real drivers of poor mental health. And so what you have to do is you have to set out the impact that you want to see, the changes you want to see, and what tools are you going to use to measure it? What are the changes that you want to see? And then the last ingredient for me is all around the voices. And this is where the This Is Me campaign is so important. You have to bring in the lived experience of voices of people that experience poor mental health. Their voices have to come out loud and clear in that business case. And we talk about, actually, you know, this session is all about how you get senior leadership buy-in for the kind of This Is Me campaign. But actually, why don't you start by getting those voices into your business case? Because actually those voices are really going to bring to life why you need to do this. So the key ingredients again, the why, the what, the impact, and the voices. So from all the work that I've done, that's my advice in terms of trying to get senior leaders to buy into the kind of workplace mental health agenda. And then specifically thinking about the This Is Me campaign, which is an absolutely brilliant campaign. Just to share our experience of being at Mind. So obviously, you know, Mind are a mental health charity. So I think in terms of getting senior leadership buy-in, probably didn't have to do as much work. They knew that this should be a priority, and they were on board with the fact that we should prioritise workplace mental health. But what I had to do is I had to convince them that the This Is Me campaign was the right approach. Because as you can imagine, we get a huge number of people coming to us and asking us to trial different interventions or to put different programs in place. And the reason that we chose This Is Me, and the reason why our senior leaders bought into it, is because of that lived experience voice being at the heart of everything we do. We always bring it back to the people, but they also recognised that it allowed people at different levels of the organisations to share their experiences in a safe way. And that's really, really important. We spoke a lot over the years about hearing the senior leadership voice, but we also recognise that if you're a CEO in a business and you share your experience, there are many people within the organisation that then challenge that and say, yeah, but you're already there. You're a CEO already. You know, I don't feel comfortable to disclose my mental health problem because I might not get there. So having different levels of people in the organisation sharing their story was really important for Mind, so that everybody felt comfortable to come forward. But also what Mind really liked is that there are many different ways that people can share their stories. So yes, we see many organisations do videos, but we do a whole host of things: one-to-one storytelling, lunch and learn storytelling, storytelling in team meetings. So the idea that everybody could feel comfortable telling their story in a way that felt comfortable to them was really important. So when you're thinking about trying to get that senior level buy-in for This Is Me, do think about the different types of way that people can share their stories, and make sure that you've consulted with your staff to get a sense of whether they're the types of things that they would be comfortable to do. And I was able to pull that together and present that to our senior leadership team. And they were really bought into the idea that it felt that we were actually including everybody within the organisation. And the last point that I would finish on is that at Mind, we have a high percentage of people working for us that have lived experience of poor mental health. And so there are huge benefits to that and huge positives, but also there are some challenges to that in terms of the level of support that we might need to provide some people as well. So it's really important for you to think about that when you're developing any of these programs. How do you promote wellbeing for everybody? How do you tackle the causes of poor mental health at work? And how do you provide people that have support to people that have mental health problems? Don't forget any of those groups. So I hope that's been helpful, and I look forward to the question and answer session. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. I can't believe how much content you covered there in 8 minutes. Thank you. That was absolutely fantastic. And I loved how you clearly set out sort of how to, those key ingredients to get the senior level buy-in. So why, what's the business case, looking at not just the financial cost, but the human cost as well, and looking at how to develop that ROI, looking at productivity, which I think is one of the challenges that was put in the chat. So that was fantastic. What it is that you want to do, what is the impact of that going to be, and really bringing in those voices within the organization into that as well, which of course is what we're all about at This Is Me. And I just wanted to share a final reflection that I loved how you shared your experience with This Is Me, and how you found it a safe way for many different people to be able to share their experience rather than just senior leaders as well. I think that's really key for us. So really fantastic to see that having an impact at Mind as well. And also some really great reports that you referred to as well. So the Deloitte report that Faye referred to in terms of supporting that business case, we can share that with everybody afterwards as well. And that leads very nicely on to introducing our next speaker, June Clark, who is the Health and Wellbeing Manager from Nestle. Nestle has been involved in This Is Me since 2018, and they have done a real range of fantastic activity using the different tools under This Is Me, including the Green Ribbon and including creating their own This Is Me film as well. So June is really going to share her experience of how This Is Me helped them get senior level buy-in, as Faye mentioned, how those lived voices helped with that, but how sharing the really practical ways that she went about doing that for This Is Me specifically. So thank you very much, June. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Faye. My name's June. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Manager for Nestle UK and Ireland. Just to give you a bit of background about Nestle, we are a huge global company. We've got over 320,000 employees right the way across the globe, and about just under 8,000 employees in the UK. Of that group of employees, 65% are in our manufacturing business, and the other 35% are people who are currently working from home. We started our wellbeing strategy back in 2014, and we had 5 strategic pillars: physical wellbeing, mental wellbeing, the workplace, the work-life blend, and of course nutrition. We're a food and drink manufacturer. But we didn't really start to put a lot of focus on mental wellbeing until about 2016. And we had a really simple philosophy. What we wanted to do was raise awareness, look at our data, train our line managers, and we felt if we got all that right, we would eventually start to, reduce the stigma around mental health. And the Green Ribbon has been really, really crucial in helping us raise awareness. So in 2016 and 2017, we did some very low-level training with our line managers. We did some how do you have sensitive conversations? We took it that basic because we knew that if an employee went off sick with a broken leg or something, the line manager's on the phone every week. How are you doing? How are you feeling? If they went off with a mental health problem, that they passed them through to occupational health, not because they didn't care, they just didn't really know what to do with them. So we had some real work to do around how did we, start to educate people. And we used things like Mental Health Awareness Week and World Mental Health Day. But it wasn't until 2018 when I'd been to a conference at back end of 2017 and learned about the Green Ribbon Appeal. So in 2018, we used the Green Ribbons to really get some groundswell behind our Raising Awareness campaign. And we used that week to just give out green ribbons to people on every one of our sites. And once we'd got over the suspicion of why we're giving it free and we're not expecting them to give them 50 pence in a bucket for a charity, it really allowed people to, start to be curious, and it started the conversations. Because what we said to people was, what we want you to do is take the ribbon. What it will show is that you're open to speak about mental health in a really positive way. And that was all we asked them to do. The other thing we did during that week was we started to show the PwC This Is Me videos. So if there's anybody from PwC listening, thank you so very, very much, because we use your videos quite a lot. And that really got people quite interested, because I didn't feel confident enough knowing our culture that I could go out and say, who wants to come along and create a video? You have to know your business, I think, to know how to, engage with them. So we used that, and that got people really interested. And every time somebody came to me and said, June, I'm doing something around mental health, what can you give me? I would say, oh, use this video. I'd give them the usual PowerPoint pack, but then say, use this video because it's a really good conversation starter. And that allowed a few people to say, I wouldn't mind getting involved. And it was a very, very few people. So the other thing I did was, whenever I was asked to go along to any, if I was asked to get involved in anything with, D&I or any senior management event, I weaved mental health into everything we did. So during D&I week, we would talk about the effects of mental health on the different generations, the different genders. So every opportunity I had, I weaved mental well-being in by stealth. And again, that just gets people involved in a really, really, engaging way. The other thing that I really needed to do was to, before we could create our video, was to get somebody from a much more senior level to be involved in it, because I felt if we could get that, going back to what was said earlier, you do need that diverse group of people so that you connect with everybody. And the thing about our senior team is, we are we're a global company. We grow our talent internally where we can. So our senior leadership team can be quite transient. I've been with Nestle 15 years, and while I've been there, I've had 4 CEOs, because we move them around. The UK market is a really good gig to get into. So it's seen as a promotion. So you're not going to stay there very long because you're blocking someone else's talent line. So it was important that we actually got the culture right, so that we didn't just rely on that transient senior team, because there was, you can convince one person, but then in 2 years they're gone. The other thing is with our team is because they come from all around the world, they come with that different cultural bias. So if we could create that real groundswell, it was really important to me. So because I'd got the network and I'd got people who were, wanting to get involved more, we finally got a couple of senior managers who were really happy to join in and start to share their story. So by the end of 2018, we'd launched our EAP. We'd never had an EAP before that. We'd started to create mental health first aiders. So we'd really started to get a bit of a groundswell behind that. And at the beginning of 2019, we made our video. And we planned to launch it during Mental Health Awareness Week in May, increase the green ribbons again and launch it during during the Mental Health Awareness Week. But then we had a senior management conference coming up in May, in March, in the March of 2019. And we just decided we would take the opportunity to get somebody on that stage during, half an hour in those 2 days to tell their story, and then show the video. And it went down a storm. And I think the thing that I've never seen 200 senior managers speechless and in tears. So it was a really, really, heartwarming session. And the thing that really brought them on board is suddenly one of them was on stage talking about their mental health. And it really resonated with them, I think. And they all walked out there with a very different view and really wanted to get involved, because we're pack creatures. So they really, really wanted to get involved. So by the time we launched the video during Mental Health Awareness Week, we had the single This Is Me video with 4 or 5 people talking about their stories, and we had 4 individual ones. And we bounced them along during the week, and it had a phenomenal effect, an absolutely phenomenal effect. We gave away the green ribbons. I think we gave away twice as many as we did the year before, although some people were still wearing the ones from 2018. And the feedback was fantastic. We did a poll at the end of Mental Health Awareness Week, and we asked, had it changed the way they view and how they can talk about mental health? And 83% of people said, yes, it had definitely changed the way they think about it. The other thing we did at that time was we started to show the senior teams and to show people the real cost of mental health. So we got their hearts and minds. We then started to say to them, actually, we've now got some data. We now know that mental health absence is overtaking musculoskeletal absence at quite a rate. We've got that 65% of manufacturing people who've been there a long time. So you would expect to have, various MSK issues, but it was overtaking it at quite a rate. We also then knew that when people went off, they went off for a significant period of time with their mental health problems compared with anything else. So we've got both the business case, but we'd also reached out and we'd really pulled into their hearts and minds. So I think my story is one of patience, really, really know your business and keep that drumbeat. Build your networks and know who's behind that network, because don't underestimate the power of people's enthusiasm and wanting to get involved. And if you can, for us, it was about getting the hearts and minds first, because I know that's what works in our business, and then back it up with that business case. So that's me.
Wonderful, June. Thank you so much. That was so such a fascinating example of all of the areas that Faye was talking about really put into practice in your business. And I really love how you reflected on sort of knowing your business, being patient as well. It's difficult for us to often to be patient and to move things forward slowly. But I think your example is an excellent example of how to do that, and how the different tools under This Is Me can help support you as well. And I really think seeing how your This Is Me film really captured the hearts and minds of those senior leaders, how you showed it to them beforehand to then engage them when you released it to the rest of your business is a really fantastic idea. And to see that impact in such a short space of time as well, with more people engaging in the green ribbon and people saying it's changed their perceptions. and then obviously backing that up as well, like you said, with that business case and the financial aspect of that as well. Thank you both so much. What we're going to do now is jump straight to our Q&A. I can see lots of questions coming in on the chat. Just a reminder that we do have the Q&A function as well for you to pop any questions in there. If you see a question that you like, you can upvote it, and that will mean we will be more likely to get to that first. So I'm going to invite both Faye and June to come back on the screen, so hopefully you can see all three of us here. So thank you both so much again. I'm going to just kick off with some of the challenges that people had shared, and a lot of people were saying, you know, in addition to the business case, how can they get support so that companies can really free up people's time to work on well-being, as often it can be seen as a distraction to sort of the core business work? I'd be really interested to hear both of your perspectives on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go first. I think it's a really good question, because I work with some businesses that have people that are dedicated to this. Mm-hmm. It is actually what they do. It's their full-time role, and that's where you see, you know, the greatest investment. But we recognise that there are many businesses that are much smaller. They don't have the resources. They don't have that same capacity. So it's much more difficult to be able to do that. So I think for me, there's something there about your champions network. There are so many people in the workplace that feel very passionately about mental health and well-being, whether it's from their own personal experience or that they've been touched by it because of friends, families or colleagues. So I think there's absolutely a role that workplace champions can play. But I think that in that role, you have to set out clear expectations. You have to kind of manage the kind of processes for them being involved and make sure that their mental health and well-being is looked after. But don't underestimate that groundswell that you can have from people that are really passionate about this. So that kind of champions network. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that many organisations that I work with have started to do is to include mental health and well-being as part of people's objectives. Mm-hmm. So it actually becomes part of core business activity. So line managers will have an objective around it, but more and more we're seeing staff have an objective around it. So it starts, as I say, it starts to become part of your core business rather than a kind of add-on to everybody's role. Mm-hmm. But I think fundamentally we have to recognise that if we want to give people space to do this, it means there will be not space to do other things. And I think when I was talking before about the kind of low-hanging fruit and the kind of fundamental changes we need to make, businesses need to actually really realise if this is a priority for them, this has to become part of their core business, and it has to be looked at in the round when businesses are deciding about their priorities and their activities, and that time has to then be allocated for staff to do this properly.
Great, thank you for that, Faye. That's really helpful, and also addresses another question that we had around the sort of the low-hanging fruit that you mentioned in your presentation. June, I just wanted to pass over to you to see if you had anything to add, because I know you mentioned in your presentation about working with your networks as well and getting people involved in across the organisation.
Steph, I'm really honest, back in 2016, it was really hard to get people involved, and we used a lot of discretionary effort. But I think once you get that groundswell of passionate people inspire other passionate people. And we've certainly got more people now than we've ever had. And I think once you start to make it, you know, once you start to raise the awareness, then the leaders are more likely to give people time to do it. So it becomes more of a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. Yeah. It was really hard early on. It's getting much easier now because people value, you know, they want people to have great health and well-being. So people get more time for it. But building that, who your passionate volunteers are really, and giving them the opportunity to speak out for you.
Great, yeah, absolutely. I like that idea of that groundswell of momentum building. And another one of the challenges, I think you've both sort of touched on it in your presentations, but people have been asking about, you know, in terms of getting that senior level buy-in, how do you address it if there's still that sort of lack of awareness or a perception with senior leaders, or even a stigma amongst senior leaders around mental health? how you both mentioned a couple of different ways, but just wanted to see if you wanted to add anything to that about how you would address changing those perceptions of those senior leaders themselves.
I think in my experience is because we've got that transient leadership team that come in and out. If they come into a culture where it's really acceptable to, speak about mental well-being, and they've got people, not every one of our senior team are 100% bought in. I'm pretty sure 100% of people in our senior team will tell you that they're bought in, but whether they are or not, it's debatable. But if they come into a culture where the majority of people are happy and feel that they feel it's important, then eventually they will just, what they won't do is they won't block it. And I think that's the first thing. So they will get involved. They'll see it as important. If I think back, the one thing that the current pandemic has shown us that is that people now value health and well-being. Mm-hmm. Not one of our town halls or any of our webinars, none of our senior team fail to mention, we want you to feel that you've got good mental well-being during this time. They wouldn't have done that 3 or 4 years ago. So I think it is about, taking people with you so that when they come into that culture, it feels that, it's something normal to be part of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would add 3 things. So the first question for me is, why would they not want to buy into this, right? Because the business case is strong. So many businesses are doing it, they're doing it well, and they're seeing the rewards of it. But so for me, I'd really like to get to the crux of the why. And I know that if you're working in an office, going up to your CEO potentially and saying, look, why are you not invested in this? Could feel nerve-wracking. But maybe there is something there about trying to get to the bottom of it, exploring it. So what is the why? And actually, you might find that the people that are most resistant, it's because of their own personal experiences. And actually, they probably are holding quite a lot of self-stigma in some way towards this subject. So something about the why, I think there's something about look around outside of your organisation where there are CEOs talking about mental health in a way that we have never heard before. If I take the example of Lloyd's, Antonio, their CEO, has spoken so openly about his mental health, needing to take time off. We are seeing more and more CEOs talk about their mental health. So get a few of those examples of those kind of leaders talking about this and use them as part of your kind of business case. And then the last thing I would say is that COVID, I really believe, and I am an optimist, it really is an opportunity to start the conversation within your organisation if it hasn't begun already. Because more than ever, we are asking each other how we are. We are seeing the human sides of each other. We're seeing in each other's front rooms. We're seeing our families, our pets, Now is an opportunity to say, wait a minute, this is about people, this is about humans. Now is the time to have the conversation. So look for those opportunities where actually all eyes are on mental health at the moment. Let's not waste that opportunity, let's take it.
Yeah, I think that's great points from both of you. And I think sharing, I think with both of your presentations, really seeing that power of being able to share what other businesses are doing as well. Like you were saying, June, with sharing PwC's video before you had your own, and exactly what you were just saying there, Faye. And that's a real benefit of, this is me in a network like this. We've got lots of examples that we can share with you, lots of videos to help you do that. So, do get in touch with us if we can help you do that. And of course, we've got our videos on the website as well. And you to open up probably the last question that we'll have a bit of time for, but a couple of questions around COVID and around that impact, and seeing if businesses are more willing to invest in mental health at the moment, and also how businesses are supporting their employees when they are working remotely, and how to get support from a senior level to do that. Sorry, that was a very big question, but any reflections, I guess, on the level of investment that you might have seen yourselves because of COVID, but also how to get that support from senior leaders to be able to support your employees whilst they're potentially working remotely and navigating this situation.
I think we've had a manufacturing population who we wanted to keep at work. We've had to keep at work, and they were, back in March, really scared to come to work. Everybody else was told to stay at home, and suddenly we were saying to them, we want you in our factories. And so we had to, you know, really think about how do we make them feel safe and secure, and make them feel that, you know, we understand how they're feeling. So we had to do a lot of work around how do we promote our EAP, how do we make sure that the line manager was checking in, and that was one area of it. With our home-based people, suddenly they become much more open in their challenges. You know, they because everybody had got childcare problems, everybody had got network problems, everybody felt scared and, you know, were worried about what was going on. So there was that sort of siege mentality that really opened up, and people have become much more open about talking about, you know, the problems they had. A year ago, you know, I worked from home 1 day a week. I wouldn't dream of having the Tesco man or the Morrison's man knocking on my door with the order. Now I just say, I'm just going to have to go because Tesco's here, because the only time. It's changed our perception about how we behave and what that work-life balance is. So I think it's forced us to do things differently, you know, because we've all been in a situation where we felt quite fearful, and those who had to go to work, you know, we've really had to support them, you know, because it's been so easy for some of us, you know, to just hunker down in our bedrooms. But, you know, those guys who had to come in every day and leave their families at home, it was really, really tough on them. And we had to really understand about how we could flex quickly and support them really quickly.
Yeah, and I think I would just add, look, you know, for so many years we have talked about health and safety, but in reality what we talk about is the safety side of it. And I always talk about, you know, the fact that if I was in the office and there was a hole in the floor and I fell down and that hole broke my leg, my employer would make sure that they covered that hole and nobody else fell down that hole. So why do we not always do that for mental health? Why are we not creating those psychologically safe working environments? So I think for me, because we've had to completely rethink the way that we work during COVID, organisations are actually starting to think about how you create psychologically safe working environments. So that is fundamentally changing the way that we think about work in the future. And I think that's really exciting. I think there's a real opportunity to do that. But I think we also have to recognise that we're going into a period of more difficulty. There are going to be redundancies, reduction in organisations, many small businesses are closing, and the impact on people's mental health through Mind's coronavirus survey is already massive. So as businesses, you need to think about your people that are working from home and the impact on them, your people who are frontline or key workers, like June said, that are still actually putting themselves at risk or feel like they're putting themselves at risk to be able to continue work and to keep the country going. You've got your people that have been furloughed, and we don't quite understand the impact yet of those people coming back to work, and people that are facing redundancy. So you've got all of these groups of people who are all going to be feeling or thinking different things. And then each one of those are individuals living different lives, different home lives, different pressures. So it's not easy, you know, and I don't sit here as mine and say that we're perfect, because we're not, you know, we've got a lot to learn as well. But I really do think that now has to be the time that we start the conversation, and that we fundamentally start to think about how we design work for better mental health. And I think that we are doing it, and I'm excited by that. So I'm going to, you know, take that opportunity and keep working with businesses, because I think this is a great time to really change the focus.
Faye, June, thank you so much. What an interesting conversation. I would love us to be able to carry on, but as we are at the end of our time, I'll say a very big thank you to both of you. And exactly as we close there, say this is an opportunity for us all to focus on this and pushing this forward in our business as much as we can. There's going to be a short feedback poll that's going to come up on your screens now. We would really appreciate your feedback, just so that we can understand how this webinar series is working for you and if there's anything that we need to change. And whilst you are completing that, I'm just going to very briefly share our plans with you for World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October to see how you as businesses and individuals can get involved and start and continue the work that you are already doing. So the theme for this year's World Mental Health Day is greater investment, greater access for everyone, everywhere. And we've seen today how important that is. So we are encouraging you to get involved across 3 activities to help us end the stigma for everyone, everywhere. And it's exactly what you've heard today. So sharing your stories, what does that look like for you? Is that a This Is Me feel? Is it just having a catch up with your team and seeing how people are doing? We'd love to encourage you to wear your green ribbon, whether that's physically like I am today or turning your social media green. And also we'd encourage you to give a green ribbon to end the stigma. And that's really an opportunity to connect with a colleague. That might be someone from your office who you're not seeing that much. It might be connecting with one of your international colleagues to say, look, we're all in this together. Even though we're apart, we can still connect, and our mental health is still really important. And you can find all of these resources on our website, which you can see on the screen here. These are different to our mental health awareness resources, so do download these ones as well. There's slightly different messaging there, and of course do post on social media, help us turn it green, and really engage everybody of the importance of our mental health and well-being at the moment, which I know that you're all doing a fantastic job on in your businesses. So I will wrap up there, got a couple of minutes over. So thank you for everyone for staying with us and giving us an extra 5 minutes of your time. And just to wrap up by saying our next webinar in this series will be on the 22nd of October. As Faye mentioned, we know this is a challenging time for small businesses. So the focus of the webinar is really to see and give ideas around how This Is Me can support small businesses on their mental health and well-being work at a time that is incredibly challenging. So we hope that either yourselves or anybody that you work with potentially in your supply chain, please do feel to share this with them, and we'd love to see them there. Really big thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We hope you have a lovely rest of the day, and we look forward to seeing all of your activity for World Mental Health Day next week. Thank you.